All right, creating a drop-down list. What are drop-down lists and why are they so important? Well, a drop-down list is, for example, if I need to enter data in the screen section, what happens if the person who's made the spreadsheet, or myself, wherever it is, wants me only to be able to select one of those options in the cell. Now, yes, there are ways of, in this case, because it's number value, locking the cell so you can only use certain values, that kind of thing. But what happens if they're words or phrases or text or whatever the case might be? You want to be able to limit people to using those options, but you also want to be able to make it easy for them just to simply click on it and select an option. So what we do here is we select the range where we want the drop-down lists to appear, and you click on data and you go to this little cell here, which is the data validation. Click on the arrow, data validation. Now, at the moment, by default, they'll be set to any value. What you can do is change that to list, and then it asks you for your source. Now, what you can do here, I'll show you why I wouldn't recommend this, but you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Let's just stop there and go OK. And then when you click on it, it gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, you can do that. I'm going to show you a better way. The reason being is because then you want to change these values or whatever the case might be, and it just becomes tricky. Then I need to go back and re-change these lists. If you select where you want to go, and we go to data and data validation, list, where it says source, let's select a range where those values are going to be. I'll put them in a second, but let's just select. So we've got the source. We said that's the drop-down list. Now this, depending on which version of Excel you're using, this could even be on a different tab. Some of the older versions of Excel and the other spreadsheet brands won't let you do it on different tabs. I normally, as a default, will have all the drop-down lists on the same tab, but I just hide them off the screen. So you can put these lists somewhere else. You can put them in another tab if the version of Excel you're using allows it, or you can just simply move it off the screen and hide it. So you've got that range, and we click OK. And now it's blank for the time being. But now what happens is if we take those values and we paste values into this cell here, in order to be able to have those values. Now, when we go here, we've got those as a drop-down list option for each one. I want to point out a few things I've done here because other people don't do this, and I think it's well worth doing. Number one is I always put a cell at the top which is blank. The reason I do that is because when you've got a fixed range of a fixed list of fixed drop-down list options like I do here, this isn't that big of a deal. But what may happen in other situations is you might actually leave yourself 10 spaces, but you may only be using 8 of them because you've got some space for future growth. So think about things like where your business is coming from, and you've got a list of all the options. You might want to have a few blank ones for the future to kind of grow into and be able to use, which you can add later on, which is fine. But now what happens is if I do that drop-down list, let's just change that. And let's say I didn't do that top cell. Now, when it is blank and you click on it, it's now at the bottom and it's missing the one to the top. So now you've got to scroll up to get back up to the top, because what happens is it's got a blank space and it wants to find the blank space in the drop-down list. So it goes down to the bottom, assuming that you've made that selection of the blank space. And it just becomes a little bit clumsy. Whereas if you actually did that data validation and you included the blank one at the top, then even if you have blank ones at the bottom, when you select the next one, it keeps you at the top because it finds that blank space, and that's where it starts you off. So it's just neater and tidier and more organized to do it that way. The other advantage of pointing to a list is that you can then come back and change this list. Later on, you can add things to it without having to go and fiddle with the individual lists, because you've named that range as that's what you look at, so you can come and add some more later on. The other advantage is there'll be another video on filtered drop-down lists, where you could actually, in theory, have these, instead of just having values, you can have these as formulated values. So you could be looking up on another list going, do we have any 2s? No, we don't. So then therefore ignore 2 and don't list it in as options. So this could become almost a dynamic or a filtered list of options, which then appear on the drop-down list. So as these change, your drop-down lists will change automatically. You won't have to go in and adjust them. That's the advantage of pointing to a reference of cells rather than typing in the options in the drop-down list option. There's one more thing that you can have a look at here. When you go to, if I, for example, want to put 1 to 8, and I now come in and try and press 9, it won't let me. It says, sorry, 9's not an option. If I press 8, it will let me because 8 is an option. What happens if I would like people to select those? For example, I want to have those in the drop-down list as an option, but I want people to be able to select other things as well. Then what you do is you can simply come to your data validation, and if you have a look, you can do an input message, which you can type in if you want to, but there's an error alert one here, which is very, very useful. So which error do you want it to do? Do you want it to say stop? Do you want it to pop up with a warning, which is a yellow kind of alert, or a blue, it just says information? So you can either have information, you can have a warning, or you can have stop. So stop won't let you go any further, the other two will. And then you can actually type in a title and an error message. So you can actually say, for example, if you say for warning, say here, number not listed. And then you can put in for your error message, you can say, for example, we would like you to select a valid number unless you're sure of what you're entering. And then you can put whatever message you want to, and then have it as an information. And then it says show error alert after invalid data is enter. Okay. So now if someone comes in and presses 9, it pops up and says, we'd like you to enter valid number unless you're sure of what you're entering. And now the person can go, hang on, I'm not sure, I better enter something that's valid. Or they can go, no, I am sure of that. Click OK, and then it allows that value in there. Alternatively, you can go back to your data validation and you can simply uncheck that tick. And then this was all grayed out because it's not valid anymore, because now what you can do is you can put in 9, you can put in 12, you can put in whatever you want, or you can select one of the drop-down list options. So yeah, those are that's the flexibility that you've got with this. But I would, as I said, recommend having the blank space at the top. I've explained why. I would also refer to a set of cell range of cells rather than typing the options manually into the data. The data validation, and then come in here, select which of these warnings you would like. You can put an error message in, or you can leave it blank. If you just want the default, that's fine. And then there you've got your range. The one last thing that you can do with this is if you check this, ignore blank is quite useful, because if you say ignore blank, if you uncheck that, what happens is it's a 1. If you come in here and say backspace and click enter, it won't let you do it. Now, there are obviously some issues with this, because if you select here and go select the blank, it does let you select it because it doesn't think it's blank. It thinks it's an option that you're selecting. So there are some downsides to this. But if you don't want people actually physically coming and clearing cells like that, then you can use that option. But yeah, as I said, there are ways around it, so it's not necessarily foolproof. Whenever I do use that option, I always put formulas in the background to make sure that something's been selected, even if it is a blank cell, it just selects one as a default. It's not foolproof, as I said, but it can help in certain circumstances. So that's a drop-down list. Hopefully that helps you. I do know a lot of people ask about this and they struggle to make these, and then they're not sure of all the different settings. So hopefully that's helpful to you. I wish you all the best. Thank you.